do have several that are right around Louisville area, but everybody's at home. We have, I think there's 3 or 4 guys that are getting some rehab right now on a daily basis that had surgery, within the last month, and so they're still having to come in to get that with Matt Summers, our trainer, and Coach Mike. So there's a handful of guys that are doing that. We were very fortunate to be able to get 7 practices in before the spring break. Had this been the year before, we would have got them all in, and but just to get those 7, golly, it was great for us. So many of young players, that showed up early here in January this semester were able to get some good quality work in, as well as the guys coming off our big bowl win to come right back. And we mentioned this back when we were doing throughout spring practice there, of how we felt like we just picked up right where we left off with that bowl practice and that bowl game, and really hitting on all cylinders, I think. And this is unfortunate, obviously, for everybody, but if you look at it just from a football perspective, we got to try to find the positives in it, and the positives were that we did get 6 weeks or 7 weeks of lifting and running when we first got back, and then we were able to get 7 practices in. So, this semester football-wise was not a total loss. We were able to get a lot of great work in, and something to build off of. The other thing is, you have film. You have film from those 7 practices, and all these guys have their iPads back home. They're able to go back and watch some of the film from the spring practice, and so that's beneficial. So there's a lot of great things that happen. We're so excited about being able to get those 7 in. Now as you move forward, when are we going to be coming back? I think that's the big question, and then we'll have a plan whenever that does happen. At what point in time we come back, of what we need to do when we get started.
Scott, Russ Brown with Kentucky Today. What would you like to see happen as far as maybe making up for some of these spring practices and so forth in the fall? I think there's really twofold. I think the two things. One thing is with our current team and our players, what are we going to be able to do with those guys? And I think certainly I think whenever it does open back up, where we're able to get our guys back on campuses throughout the country, we're going to have to be able to do some things maybe that on the calendar and before that were not the rules. And so. And I think the NCAA was certainly looked into that, and and I think it really just depends on what the timing is. And so whenever we can come back, can we have some extra time with these guys to be able, number one, get them back into shape, and get them back into football, the physical part of the game, as far as the strength levels, what type of shape are they in running wise, and also working on the fundamental part of the game. So all that stuff's going to take time. Our guys have been gone now. I mean, we're in the 3rd week that they've been gone. So, as the weeks go by, it's going to be turning into months. And so you just can't jump right in when you get back. You're going to have to gradually get back into it. So some of the rules are going to, we're going to have to tweak some of the rules as far as that goes. And the second thing is the recruiting piece. All the campuses throughout the country, we're getting ready to host a lot of unofficial visits, bringing recruits on campus. And now that's been curtailed for a while. And so in the summertime, there's an NCAA dead period right now. As you look at the end of June and all of July, basically, those are some other things that may need to be looked at and tweaked. We open that back up and allow, these high school players to be able to come on campuses and check these schools out. I think certainly that will happen whenever we do open this back up. So there's going to be several rules that we're going to have to look at for this year, and obviously tweaking. I mean, the whole country's having the unprecedented event that's going on right now, so we're all kind of tweaking things as we go, I think.
Scott, Michael McCammon from Cardinal Authority here. You mentioned recruiting. You guys have picked up a couple recent commitments. Obviously, you guys are a little handcuffed to what you can do right now. So what kind of efforts are you making on the recruiting trail to have a positive impact right now?
Yeah, the one thing that we've done staff-wise is we're in constant communication. I think, really sometimes overkill, but I think that's what you have to do right now. Our coaches are kind of scattered throughout, really. Most are in Louisville, but some are other places. And with family, I think everyone's family is the first in priority, and that's our student athletes and our staff. And so, taking care of your family is the number one thing. The next thing that we're doing right now is being in contact with our players. And then the third thing is in contact with these recruits, and so, we're fortunate in this day and age where we have, technology like we have right now on this conference call. I mean, we're
we're using some apps like Zoom to have some conference calls with our staff, and that's worked really well with our whole staff. Is being on this constant communication, finding out what's going on with our players, and then also what's going on in recruiting. We're looking at different things graphic-wise that we can do. What kind of videos can we send to these recruits? Showing our facilities, and continuing to build relationships with these guys. I mean, I think that's kind of what our guys are doing right now. While they're at home. And really, as football coaches, all of us are kind of, you want to be doing something. You want to be out and about and working. And so we're utilizing this time right now to spend time with our family, but also, keep up with our players and then these recruits.
Coach, Kent Taylor from Wave TV. You mentioned family. Going through this as a coach is one thing, but going through it as a dad also, especially with a kid who's a senior in high school, how tough has that been over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. We've spent some time, as most everyone knows, my senior, oldest one is in North Carolina. So we've kind of spent a little bit of time in North Carolina, a little bit of time in Louisville. In North Carolina, they're saying they're not going back to school at the earliest till May 15th. I mean, so that's roughly 2 more months, particularly on your senior year. There's a lot of things getting missed out on, when you think about, your senior year, your prom, your, graduation, all these things, and spring sports. I feel for all college athletes, the high school athletes that are going through their senior year, all those things, man, it's bad. And but you got to just try to find the positives in it. We've been able to spend a lot more time together. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to spend that time, particularly for my situation where you got a senior and a junior and sophomore where, they're going to be out of the house very soon. So this is actually very beneficial for us as a family to be able to spend some time together and that we wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. So we're trying to find the positives in all of that.
Scott, this is Ken Spencer with WHAS 11. I know it was just 7 spring practices, but did any of the early signees, really impress you, the ones that were able to show up and go through those 7 practices that might be able to help you out in the fall?
Yeah, I think there are several guys that really did a lot of great things. The couple that come to mind, Christian Fitzpatrick, Des Fitzpatrick's little brother. He's his little brother, but he's pretty big. He's probably bigger than Des. And he's got long arms, really ran good. And I tell you, the last couple of practices was really coming on, really good, making some plays, catching the ball, blocking really, really well. Particularly for a guy who just come out of high school, to be able to block the way he does on the perimeter. We all know we want to run the football, and so he did some great things. Braden Smith did some great things at the wide receiver and slot position as well that really kind of stood out to us. I think Lawson up front, offensive line-wise, did some things. Very athletic. We'll be able to see him. Henry Bryant up front, as a D lineman, not very big, but extremely quick and did some really good things. Was starting to come on. I think as I think about, all those freshmen that came in, I think a lot of them were starting to get a lot better. And, that's just 7 practices. And so you start to think about, development and what we're kind of missing. And really, again, we're fortunate because we got 7, but there's a lot of schools that didn't get any. And you're missing that kind of development, man. It's so critical, I think, in this part of the year, in the springtime, to be able to go through those practices, critique it, come back the next day, get better. And it may be very small amounts, incremental amounts of getting improving, but nevertheless, you're improving. And you can see it, from practice 1 till the 7th practice. But there were several guys that were good. And I tell you this, here's the other thing. In the past experiences, guys that came in early that did some things in the spring, man, by the time August got around, they were a different player, from spring practice. So I'm, very excited about seeing where these guys are going to be as we get back. Now, this is different circumstances. We'll see how long we're going to be away. But I think being able to come in here early is a huge advantage for these freshmen.
Scott, I'm sure you talked about this before, but how did you, since it's turned out to be so important, how did you first get around to having such early spring practices, actually winter practices, and far ahead of what everybody else is doing?
Well, we started doing it back in, I want to say 2014, so it's been a while, and maybe the spring of 15. I can't remember. It's one of the 14 or 15, and we started doing that right when they got back from Christmas break. You'd have about a 3-week period where they come back, get acclimated a little bit, lifting weights, and then we jumped right on it 1st of February. And initially, when we first tried it, we just were going to try it to see how it worked out. But we really liked it. The coaches really liked it. I think the players really liked it because we got on it. We knocked it out before spring break. We were able to come back, and we could train roughly, 8 weeks, 9 weeks of just straight lifting, running, some player-led practices, so they could go out on their own and kind of do a 30-minute fundamental, go out and throw the football. So you're almost still in practices. Of course, the coaches were not out there, but the guys were out there doing that. And then they carried right into the summer. So really about 4 months of just straight training. So we really liked that, and we started doing it. Then we started winning a lot of games at App State by doing it that way. When we got up here to Louisville last year, we did the same thing. We jumped right on it, got it in early. I just think you get it in early. The guys are able to coach off of that film after that throughout the rest of the semester. And the other thing, positive thing, is that, well, our coaches were able to get recruiting-wise, you're done. You're sitting in March and you're jumping on the next recruiting class. You got several weeks before you go out into the evaluation period in April and May. So I think on the recruiting side it was great, and player development was great. This year we pushed it back a couple of weeks just because February was a dead period for us. So now this March, when we were going to come back, was when we were going to host a bunch of unofficials. So, that dead period in February kind of hurt us a little bit, what we usually do in the past.
Hey, Coach, Cameron from the Courier-Journal. Obviously, they have postponed the Olympics. With that, do you worry at all about if they might push back football season? And do you plan for that when it comes to planning for summer and fall camp and everything?
No, I'm not planning for that, Cameron. I'm planning for the season to go on. We are still a long ways away, but before then, I think hopefully that we'll get this virus under control. I think we're learning every single day. I mean, our medical people and all the caretakers that are really taking care of all the sick people that are out there, really commend all those people. We think about those people a lot, and so I think hopefully we're going to come up with some drugs that'll really get into this virus and it'll help people continue to get well. And meanwhile working on a vaccine. And I think we've got to stay positive, and we've got to stay upbeat and really think forward that this season is going to get in. I think we know what sports they just do for your psyche. Not only us that are actually doing the sports, but really for everybody out there, all the sports fans that really love sports and that really need that. I think all you sports writers. I mean, we're all sitting here and scrambling and finding stories, to write about for sports, and I just think as a country we need it. We need it for our psyche. We need it for our well-being. I think hopefully we'll find ways as we move forward. I think certainly this is going to change a lot of things within our society, and moving forward, particularly in the service industry and, how it's affecting these jobs and how we do restaurants and, how even in the businesses and how we conduct interviews, maybe a lot of things can be done over the internet now. I mean, so it's going to change a lot of different things, I think, as we move forward and hopefully for the better. But I got to look at it like we're going to have season and we're going to get this thing in and, hopefully we'll be able to get our guys back in very soon.
Coach, Kent Taylor again from Wave TV. Kind of taking off on that, with the Derby being moved to September 5th, and you have that what's scheduled to be your home opener on that Thursday night. Kind of your thoughts on what that week could mean. I mean, I think of like maybe New Orleans, when Hurricane Katrina and they had that Monday night game. I mean, it could be pretty special.
Yeah, I think it could be extremely special. Particularly just the start of football season. And like I said, hopefully we've already been in camp and we've had our camp and we're getting ready to start the sports season back again and for college football and then you have one of the largest sports venues in the world with at Churchill Downs, kicking off that weekend with the Derby. I think what better place to be in than Louisville, Kentucky that week. I think it's going to be a tremendous week for us. I think particularly with us kicking off an ACC game right off the start, NC State, and for that week, and then with the Derby. I mean, I just think it'll be very exciting, one that'll be very anticipated. And hopefully all the people that are coming for the Derby, they'll swing in by Cardinal Stadium that evening and watch us play before going over to the Derby that weekend.
Coach, Coach.
This is Dennis Brown from CBS Sports. I know you just said, the season. Is there a drop dead date for you when, let's say you start 0 August 1st, and then you need to get a team ready?
Well, as we move forward to this, we'll find out exactly when we're going to get everyone back. But we're all college teams are going to need some time to get these guys back in shape. I mean, it's not. I think you'll see a lot of an uptick in injuries if we get right back here, and we get started and we're trying to start practicing and everything. Yet, to me, you can't do it that way. We'll have a great plan when we get back with all our guys and gradually get back into it. And I'll even sacrifice practice time if we have to in order to get these guys on track. Our number one goal would be to keep these guys healthy. I think the most healthiest team throughout a fall season will be the most productive team. So whatever that will entail, if it's stretching the first day when they get back and we're doing very minimal running, you got to get back in the weight room and get the strength levels back up. So that we're going to take our time when we get them back here. So the earlier the better when we get them back in on campus, so we can take our time. And I think, because we don't want to rush anything before we start season. And so a lot's going to determine over the next few weeks and maybe a month or two of when we can get these guys back.
Good. Thank you, Coach. It's Jody Demling again. How you had 7 practices? You've talked a little bit about it. How did you come out of the abbreviated spring as far as health-wise is concerned?
Yeah, I think overall we were pretty healthy. Jack Fagot ended up with a collarbone. I think he had a slight fracture in his collarbone there, but he's fine now. He's on the mend. So he's one of the guys been getting treatment. So really, whenever we do get back, he should be good to go. With the rest of the guys. Russ Yeast is one that missed practice. We all know that, but he's training now and his rehab's going great. He's starting to do some things on the field now. We're getting his strength levels back up, so I feel very comfortable for him to be able that when we get back in that he'll be very close to being able to go. And then we had OKK. Nick OKK was the other one that he just cleaned up a shoulder, and so he's kind of doing some rehab right now. But hopefully by the summer he'll be ready to go and get back lifting and doing everything with everybody else. And so I think we're relatively healthy as you think about across the board. Everybody's been, other than that, have been participating and been healthy and good to go. I'd say right now we're in great shape health-wise.
Scott, this is Kent Spencer with WHAS 11 again. Can you guys at your house, can you watch film of spring practice or even watch cut-ups from last year, or even future opponents? Like, do you have access to all that stuff in your house?
Yeah, we do. We all us coaches have our iPads that are linked in to our server that we have in our offices. And so Luke, our video guy, we've been in a lot of contact with him, and so there's a lot of things. We can watch all our practices from the spring. We can watch our film from last season. We can watch upcoming opponents. I've got a bunch of NFL film that I'm kind of going through right now, just getting ideas. So yeah, that's what we're doing. On top of the recruiting that we're doing with these guys, and spending time with family. Other things that we're doing is going through our film, and so. This is a great opportunity, a great time for us as coaches to go back and look at what we've done well, what we need to correct, and what we need to work on. And so you put down ideas, and then when we come back together, and all our guys are, jotting down things and things they think they can get better as a position group, and then obviously as an offense, defense, and kicking game. So, yeah, we certainly have access to all that.
Scott, it's Heather again at ESPN. What specifically are you asking them to do physically right now?
Well, Coach Mike's put together some things that they can do, whether they have access to weights. So, we have programs they can do with that. If they don't have access to weights, then he's got some great exercises they can do in their home as well. So, and really we're just trying to cater to whatever they're able to do. And, with these guys, the main thing is just to stay active, find ways. And in a lot of cases, we have to get be creative with what we're using. If you can find certain things at home, whether it be a backpack, fill it up with books, and doing things with that. I've seen pictures of our guys pushing cars down up a hill. I mean, just, you try. It's really, you go back to old school mentality and some of these thinking that you have to do, and trying to accommodate these guys. But again, we've been in contact and really trying to help these guys out. The other thing that's really important as we look at it, and it's not only our players, I guess it's probably everyone, because it's changed everybody's lifestyle at this point, but it's just the psyche of our guys. And just, because these guys are athletes, and they want to go work out. They want to go, do the things that they love, in this case football, and having a hard time doing that. But they're trying to find ways with that. And so, just trying to keep them upbeat and positive, and knowing that when we all get back together, we'll get back in shape.
Well, that was the other question I had, was how much trust do you have in 100 and some guys that they're not like my kids and just playing Xbox?
I'm sure they're playing some Xbox in some of those games for sure. But we've got a good group. And, I would, like, if this was a year ago at this time, I'd be really nervous about that. I think with us being here, over a year now, and our guys know fully what to expect. I'm telling you, just being with them in that spring practice for those couple of weeks was so much fun to be around them. You can just tell their attitudes, and they're eager and want to get better, and they are getting better. And so I feel like all the progress that we've made over the last 15 months, they don't want to just throw that aside. And so I really believe these guys are putting the work in to the best of their ability. Now there's nothing that we can do and these guys can do that is going to be sufficient enough to what they could do in our office with our guys. Just because you have your peers beside you that are pushing, so you're at home by yourself. You can't get pushed like you can when you have your teammates with you. So we know there's going to be some work to do when we get back. It's going to be the case throughout the whole country. And, but we just got to trust our guys are going to do the thing.
Thank you.
Coach Cameron again.
Hey, how you doing?
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. In terms of reinforcing things, what did you see with the veterans in those 7 days you had? I mean, what areas did you specifically see that carried over from last year?
Yeah. Well, I think if you start with offense, I think Cunningham had a great spring. He picked up where he left off in the bowl. I thought he played his best game of the year, really, in the bowl game. And he's got a really good command of what we're doing offensively. I remember in spring, there was time I called a couple of plays during some scrimmage time that we hadn't practiced during spring, but we ran last fall, and he ran it perfectly. So that, to me, that's growth and what he's been able to accomplish. I think about the receivers, Tutu, Dez, those guys were phenomenal on the outside. I think Hawkins and Hall, both running backs were really, really good. I thought our number one offensive line looked great. I think Adonis Boone, filling in at left tackle there. I thought he did some great things throughout spring practice. Cole Bentley at center, Robbie Bell at guard. I mean, those guys, Chandler at left guard. I mean, and Renato Brown was the guy we redshirted last year who right now is penciled in as our starter at right tackle, is what he did during the spring. I thought he had a really good spring as a young player. So, I think Ford at tight end is phenomenal, such a great weapon for us. We do so many things with him. So we're excited about offensively. We got a ton of weapons, a very productive offense last year. We feel really good about it heading into the fall. And then defensively, I thought Jack Fago was having a really good spring back there in the secondary. He was doing some really good stuff. I think, both linebackers, C.J. Avery's a great leader for us. Really did some good things there. Etheridge did some great things on the inside right there. I just think, the veterans, the guys that played last year, Rajay, those guys, I think, did some really good things defensively as well. And you can see how it's just clicking for those guys. And we're putting in a lot more things defensively. They're running to the football. Again, what we have to do, and we're not there yet, but we got to create a lot more depth. The depth was an issue for us last year. It's still going to be an issue this year. Our depth this year is just going to be a lot of young players, guys that really haven't played a whole lot. So how quickly can we get those guys coming on, I think, will benefit our team the most. And again, not being able to be on campus, that's going to hurt that.
We'll take two more questions.
Again, I just got a quick question for you, Coach. You had mentioned watching a lot of film. If this was a normal year, would you still be doing spring practice? how much more film do you feel like you're watching now because you can't actually get out there and practice on the field with the guys?
Yeah, I think, we are watching more now, other stuff. Had we been in there practicing, I'm going to be watching our guys. How can we get better, as a football team and individually and specifically. So now with this idle time that we have here, we're all us coaches are using it to look at other guys, look at other teams, look at NFL teams. What are some guys doing out there that fit what we do that maybe we can tweak a little bit, or add a wrinkle here, add a wrinkle there. So I think this gives us much more time for that. That's a good point, Cameron. If you're right in the middle of things during spring practice and then you head right into recruiting, you don't have as much time to do that. So right now, our guys are jotting down a lot of things, and as when we get back together and we talk about it. Last night I was FaceTime and we had some guys on the staff, and we're talking about plays last night, stuff that we looked at yesterday. So that's constantly going on. So I think hopefully when we come out of this, we'll have some great ideas and things that we can add.
Last question.
Coach, this is Aaron Matus from WDRB. Hard to predict, but just wondering how much of an impact, you said it's going to be hard to come up with a plan until you know when guys are able to come back to campus. How much of an impact is that going to be in the beginning of the season in particular, I guess, to which coaching staff can kind of adjust and put together a non-traditional summer plan to get these guys ready?
Yeah, and it's unprecedented. This has obviously never happened before. So, I think there's going to be a lot of coaching staffs that are going to put their heads together and figure out what they think the best is going to be for their guys. I think that the teams that are the most veteran teams that will come back, to me, will be the most successful early on in the season. I think teams that are young and/or teams that have new staffs that are coming in, I think may have a little bit more disadvantage with that. I think so. As you look at early in the season, there's going to be some learning curve that is going to have to happen there. And I think the staffs, again, I mentioned this earlier, but the ones that put together a really good plan, a comprehensive plan to gradually get their guys back into shape, back up to where they were at when they left, I think will be the ones that are most successful. And I think ultimately, and the way I'm viewing it is, what can we do best for our guys? We want those guys to be healthy. And I think I'll sacrifice practice, I'll sacrifice anything for their health. And so that's kind of what we'll look at whenever this thing breaks and we get back on campus and we start devising our plan.
Coach, I said last question, but Kent Taylor, you have one more, last one.
All right.
Coach, can you just kind of talk about the feedback you've gotten about Mekhi Becton after his performance at the Combine and what you're telling NFL scouts about him as well? Thank you.
Yeah, I think he obviously turned a lot of heads when he ran that 40 time that day up there in the Combine. But I think just the feedback is he's, one of a kind type player. With his size and athleticism, there's not many guys walking around on the earth that can do what he can do. And I think, therefore, and then when he went out and ran that time, and he's obviously got some strength. And then what he put on film this year, I think, prior to this year, was not rated as high, but to his credit, he put a lot of work in this fall season, put some good film out there of how hard he was playing, dominating some guys. So I think his potential is extremely high, and I think that's what the guys are going to, end up drafting him off of that potential. And so, I think, number one, he's a great person. He'll put the work in, and he's got the ability. So everybody's excited about him. It'll be very interesting to see where he ends up landing and what team he lands to. But we're super pumped for him and excited in whatever city he ends up in.
Coach, thank you for joining us today. All the media on the call, thank you for being with us. And that will end our teleconference for today.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, guys.